Okay, so for decades, right?
You know,
The U.S. government line was basically
pretty clear.
Yeah.
The
supernatural stuff,
pure
psychic
fantasy.
powers,
Things
telepathy,
like psychic powers,
seeing things far away
telepathy,
with your mind,
mind-to-mind
pure fantasy.
stuff,
That's what they
astral
told
projection.
everyone.
Yeah,
that
that
was
was
all
the
science
public
fiction.
face.
Definitely
Complete
not
skepticism.
something serious
But,
intelligence.
you know,
agents
while
has
that
been
was the
bothered
official
with.
story,
But
behind
what
closed
if,
doors,
just
something,
maybe, behind all those
something
closed
much
doors,
stranger
something,
was apparently going on.
something much stranger
Deep
was actually
inside
happening.
the
What if
intelligence
they were
community.
actively chasing?
It's a really interesting contrast, isn't
Today
it?
we're doing
Publicly,
a deep
it's all
dive into
scientific
Project
dismissal.
Sunstreak.
Privately,
It's honestly
the
one
Pentagon,
of the most
the
bizarre, most
CIA,
classified programs
they're
to come out of
clearly
the Cold
wrestling
War
with something
era.
very different. These
And we're not just talking
fantasies
spies
suddenly
and microphone
become
here. This was an effort to
a serious
weaponize the human
strategic
mind
issue.
itself. Exactly. And that
funded by
worry,
black
that sort of
budgets and,
creeping
you know,
fear
money
about
kept off the
psychic
official
warfare,
books
it
and
leads
wrapped
to
in
one of
layers
the
of secrecy.
honestly most
Officially, the mission
bizarre
for
and top
Sunstreak
secret
was something called
projects of the
remote
whole
viewing.
Cold War.
The
Project
idea that
Sunstreak.
certain trained
I mean, just
people
picture
could
an
perceive
actual
distant
government project
places,
trying to weaponize the human mind. Funded off
secret
the
enemy
book.
sites,
Totally
maybe even
secret.
future
And
events.
officially, the
just
cover
using their
story, or maybe
minds.
the initial idea was
But as we're going to
remote
explore,
viewing.
Right.
this project
This
seemed to spiral into
supposed
something far stranger,
ability
maybe
for
even
trained
darker.
people to just
It started touching on things like ancient occult
distant
practices,
places,
maybe
secret
aliens and
enemy bases,
realities
maybe
that-
even peek into the
well,
future.
so they
All
didn't
just
fit the
using their
standard picture.
minds. And just to be
And
clear,
we should be clear,
as we
this
dig into
wasn't
these
some like
really extraordinary
side
claims and
hobby. It
theories
wasn't
around
just a
them,
few folks
we're
messing
looking at the
around.
narratives
This
from
was
the
a
source
strategic
material.
move,
We're not
a
saying
direct
this is true,
response to what they
but trying to
thought the
understand the
Soviets were
massive
doing.
questions
They were
raise.
urgently trying to get
and
an
what's
edge
really
in a
striking is where this all
completely new kind
began.
of- It wasn't some,
battlefield.
And that's what we're doing today. We're going to peel back
It came
those
from a
layers
very
of secrecy,
real, very
really
Cold War
deep
fear.
dive into
The
Project
actual roots of
Sunstreak
Sunstreak go back to the
and the kind of
1970s.
wild
U.S. intelligence
conspiracy
discovered
theories
the
that are still
Soviets were
swirling
pouring
around it.
serious
Yeah, because the
resources
story
into
goes way
parapsychology
beyond just
research.
psychic
Parapsychology.
spying.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
Oh yeah, serious
It
stuff.
might have cracked
Experiments in
open the door
telepathy,
to, well,
psychokinesis,
alien
that's
contact, maybe
mind
even
over
some
matter
sources
influencing
suggest
physical
interdimensional
objects,
conflict.
and
It gets pretty out
remote
there.
viewing.
It really
They were
does.
taking it very
So we're going to look
seriously.
at where
Okay,
it
so
came
the
from,
U.S.
the really
finds out the
unsettling things
Soviets
are
are doing
doing
this
reported
psychic
seeing.
stuff. How did the Pentagon
weird
react? I mean,
overlaps
this
with
idea
old occult
of
stuff
an invisible
and these
battlefield.
incredible claims about
That must have caused some
contacting
panic.
Panic is probably the right
the
word.
unknown. So
The
yeah,
alarm bells
settle
went off
in. This is where
immediately.
things get weird.
There was this
So where did
profound fear
Sunstreak
of being
even
left
come from?
behind, of the
It
Soviets
really
gaining
kicks off
some
back
kind
in
of
the early 70s.
psychic
There was this
advantage,
sort
a
of
whole new
quiet
battlefield
panic
opening up.
brewing
And that
in the
fear
intelligence
directly
world during
led
the
to the
Cold
CIA
War.
kicking off
Word got
Project
out
Stargate.
that the Soviets
This was
were
the big
pouring
umbrella
serious
program
money and effort
investigating
into
psychic
parapsychology.
phenomena for
And
intel
not just
gathering.
dabbling. We're talking
Right, I've heard of that one.
state-sponsored
Exactly. And
experiments,
under Stargate, you
telepathy,
had these smaller,
moving
more
objects
focused
with the mind,
sub-projects.
psychokinesis,
Project Sunstreak
and
was one of
crucially,
them,
remote
run by the
viewing.
Defense
Yeah,
Intelligence
and when U.S.
Agency, the
intelligence
DIA,
picked up
mainly
on
in the
this,
1980s.
alarms
So,
went
okay,
off.
Sunstreak
Big
starts up
time.
under the
Pentagon
DIA.
especially.
You can imagine
What was
the
its
fear,
job?
right? What if this stuff is
Officially.
real?
On
Even if
paper.
it only gives a
On
small
paper, it was
advantage.
pretty
Exactly.
straightforward,
The US
almost
could be
mundane if you
completely
ignore the psychic part.
blindsided in a
Recruit
conflict that
people,
doesn't
often with
use
military
bombs or
backgrounds,
spies
train
in
them
the
as remote
traditional
viewers.
So
their
this
job.
perceived
Project
threat,
their
this
consciousness
potential
out,
psychic
spy on
gap,
enemy
it leads
facilities,
directly to the
find
CIA
hidden
starting
missile
Project
silos,
Stargate.
track Soviet
which was kind of
subs,
the umbrella
standard
program.
Cold
And
War
under
targets,
Stargate, you
just
get these
using a very
sub-projects.
unconventional method.
Project Sunstreak
Right.
was one of
Gather
them,
intelligence
run by the
without
Defense
actually having to
Intelligence
be there
Agency, the
physically.
DIA, mostly
But this
through the
is where
1980s.
the whole
Okay.
story takes a
So
sharp turn.
Sunstreak gets
Because
going.
pretty quickly,
And
the
on
viewers weren't just
paper,
describing Soviet missile
its
silos.
job
As the
sounds,
project went on,
well,
they started
almost
reporting.
straightforward for that world.
Well,
Recruit
describing
people,
things
train them
that,
as
and this is
remote
quoting the
viewers.
source material,
Get them to
should not
project their
exist.
consciousness,
Should not exist.
basically.
That's quite a phrase.
And spy on
What does
Soviet
that even
facilities.
mean in this
Gather
context?
intel.
It really
Standard
challenges the whole
espionage,
initial mission,
just with a
doesn't it?
very
It absolutely
unconventional
does.
method.
It
But
implies
that's not
they were
how it
seeing
played
things
out, was
way
it? It
outside
became
the
clear
expected
pretty
scope
fast
of
this wasn't just
military
about finding
intelligence.
missile
So,
silos.
okay,
No, almost
They're
right
getting these
away, the
bizarre
viewers weren't
reports
just describing,
alongside
submarine
maybe some
pens or radar
conventional hits.
installations.
Yeah.
The data start getting
How are they actually
weird.
training
Weird
these
how?
people?
Well,
What
that
were
was the big
methods?
turning point.
They
really.
developed what they
The
called
viewers started
controlled
reporting
protocols.
things that,
One
based on
key
our
method
normal
was
understanding of
coordinate
physics and
remote
reality,
viewing, or
just
CRV.
shouldn't exist.
Things that
Basically,
shouldn't
a
exist.
viewer would be
Okay,
given
now we're
geographic
getting somewhere.
coordinates,
Yeah,
maybe latitude
the information
and
they were
longitude,
bringing
or
back
sometimes
was
just a
pushing
target
way
sealed in an
past the
envelope they
boundaries of
couldn't
what
see.
anyone expected.
And their task was
It
to describe
fundamentally
what was
challenged what the
Just
program
based
was
on
even
coordinates.
supposed to be doing. Just coordinates.
So tell me about these
And
viewers.
initially,
weren't
they
just
got some
random people
results
off the
that
street,
were,
right?
well, personnel,
Yeah.
Many
impressive
had
enough to
military
keep the
backgrounds.
project
That's right.
going,
Often
maybe
small
military
successes,
personnel.
but still.
And they went through this
Things like
really
accurate
specific,
sketches of Soviet
structured training,
submarines,
descriptions of missile sites
controlled
under
protocols was
construction,
the
details
term.
that
Like
later
coordinate
intelligence
remote
like satellite
viewing or
photos
CRV.
actually
CRV.
confirmed.
Okay, so it wasn't
Showed
just
something was
like
happening.
closing your
so
eyes
there were
and
some
hoping
hits.
for the best.
No,
Enough
very
to
systematic.
justify
They
continuing.
might be given
But
just
then
a
you
set
said
of
things
geographic
started to get
coordinates or
weird.
maybe a random number
Veering
linked
beyond the
to a
material
target.
world. What kind of
Then they'd
reports
go
are we
through
talking
these
about?
stages,
I imagine that caused
drilling
some
down,
big eyebrows.
describing
Raised
sensory
eyebrows is
details,
putting it
sketching
mildly.
impressions.
The accounts became
trying
genuinely
to build
bizarre.
a picture of
Some
a target
viewers
they
started
knew nothing
describing
about consciously.
energy beings,
Often something hidden
non-physical
miles away,
entities
maybe
that were
even
apparently
sealed in an
watching them
envelope
while they were
right there
doing
in
the
the room.
remote
And
viewing.
did it work?
Yeah.
Initially.
Well,
Others
the early
claimed they
results
weren't just
were
moving across
apparently
space, but across
intriguing.
time. They
Impressive
reported
maybe,
glimpsing
but small
ancient
scale.
civilizations,
You
or
know,
even
sketches that looked
events
far in the
surprisingly
future.
like a Soviet factory.
Think about being the project
Details about a
manager.
hidden bunker
You get a
that
report
later
from a
matched
decorated
spy
military
photos.
officer.
Enough
Someone
to keep the funding
trained and
flowing,
vetted,
definitely.
insisting
so it
they
had some
witness the
legs.
Egyptian
But
pyramids
then, like
being
you said,
built.
things took
But
a turn.
not by
A sharp
Egyptians.
turn, yeah, because
By,
it's one thing to
quote,
sketch a building you
tall,
shouldn't know
luminous
about. It's something else
entities.
entirely
Wow,
when your
okay.
trained
That's
military
not standard
viewers
intelligence.
start
Not
reporting
even
experiences that
or
just
another viewer claiming
flat out
they
defy the
psychically
material
accessed a
world as
hidden
we know
base
it.
under the
Let's look-
Antarctic ice,
what kind of
finding
things?
spacecraft,
Well,
and being
get this,
repelled by
some
some kind
viewers
of
started
non-human
reporting
consciousness
energy
guarding the
beings.
place.
What energy beings?
And these weren't
Yeah.
just one-offs.
Not
This kind
people,
of stuff
not
started
animals,
happening
just
more frequently.
conscious energy
So
forms
even though
that
this
were
was all
apparently
highly
watching them while
classified,
they were doing
word
remote
must have
viewing.
gotten
To the
around
viewers,
inside the
okay, that's
project,
great.
right? You
Right.
can't just file
Others
reports
claimed
about
they weren't
luminous
just moving
pyramid builders
across
and
space,
expect
but
everyone to
across
ignore
time.
it.
Exactly.
Getting glimpses
While the
of
official
ancient
reports might have
history
tried to
or even
downplay or
future
bury
events.
these stranger accounts,
Time travel.
the whispers started.
That's what they
Inside Sun Street,
There's one
people
really
began
famous
talking.
or
Maybe
infamous
remote viewing
account.
wasn't just a tool
A
for
viewer
spying on the
insisted
Soviets.
they saw the
Maybe
Egyptian
it was
pyramids
somehow
being built,
about making
but
contact.
not by Egyptians.
Contact with what,
By,
though?
quote,
That's the
tall,
million-dollar
luminous
question.
entities.
Well, and this is another
Luminous
fascinating
entities
layer.
building
As they
the
pushed
pyramids.
these
I mean, that
techniques,
sounds like
people
something
within
from
the
a,
program
fringe
started noticing
documentary.
disturbing
Exactly, except these were reports coming from
parallels
within
between
a
the remote
classified
viewing methods
military
and
intelligence
practices found,
program.
and that's what makes you
Well,
stop and
ancient
think.
occult
definitely.
traditions.
Any other
Occult
examples?
traditions.
Oh yeah,
You mean like
another
magic
one,
and
just as
mysticism?
strange. Sort of.
A viewer
Yeah.
claimed they
The
found
sources
hidden
point
spacecraft
specifically to
under the
things like
ice
the
in
rituals of
Antarctica.
astral projection.
Hidden
The
spacecraft.
idea of the
Like
consciousness
UFOs.
leaving the
It
body,
seems
which
to
you
be the
find described in
implication.
detail
And
in
guarded,
the teachings
apparently,
of old
by
esoteric
some kind of
orders.
consciousness that
Groups like the
resisted
Golden Dawn,
intrusion,
the
like a
Rosicrucians.
psychic
Right,
guard
those
dog, but
secret
not a dog.
societies
Okay,
focused
wow.
on
So these
mystical
reports,
knowledge.
were they just
and
spiritual
mirrored-
stuff filed
Yeah.
away
So
as
the
crazy?
techniques they
Well,
were using
officially,
in
a lot
Sun
of the
Street.
stuff was
Mirrored
probably
things like
downplayed or
visualization
buried,
exercises,
classified
achieving
deep.
trance
But
states,
inside the
the
project,
deliberate separation of consciousness from the
whispers
physical
started.
body.
The idea
All
took hold
techniques
that maybe
documented in
remote
occult
viewing
literature
wasn't just about
centuries
spying
before
on
the
the
Pentagon
Soviets
got
anymore.
involved.
Maybe.
So it raises a
Maybe
pretty
it was
wild
about
question,
making
doesn't it?
contact.
And this is where it
Was
gets
the
even
U.S.
stranger, right?
military
the
in its
connection
Cold War
or the
race
apparent connection to
accidentally rediscovering
occult
ancient
practices?
mystical practices?
Yes, that's
repackaging
another
them as
layer to this
military
whole
tech.
thing that's just
It's a
fascinating.
provocative thought, absolutely.
People within
Were
the
they
program
tapping into a type
apparently
of knowledge
acknowledged
noticing
that
these
secret
disturbing
societies and
parallels
mystics had guarded
between the
for
remote
ages,
viewing
just calling it
techniques they were
something new.
developing
And it gets
refining,
darker too,
and
right?
practices
Because it wasn't
found
just
in
observing.
really
Sometimes
old
the viewers
occult
reported
traditions.
feeling
Occult traditions,
unwelcome.
like
Like,
that.
that's a key
methods
point.
described in
It became
esoteric
even more
orders.
unsettling.
Groups like
Viewers
the
started
Hermetic
reporting
Order of the Golden
encounters with
Dawn
hostile
or the
presences. They
Rosicrucians.
described
Okay.
psychically
They were looking at
arriving
rituals for
location,
astral
maybe a
projection,
target
achieving
site,
trance
only to
states,
be confronted.
intense
Confronted by who?
visualization exercises,
Not
the whole
human
idea
guards.
of separating
They described
your
things like
consciousness from your
shadowy
physical
entities
body
that seemed
Wait, so the
fully aware
technique
of the
Sun Street
viewer's
was teaching its
intrusion
military
and
viewers.
actively hostile
seem
to
to
like
directly
guard dogs
mirror
almost.
these
That's deeply
ancient
disturbing.
mystical
It
practices.
suggests that
It's
if
quite
the mind
striking
can
when you
travel
put them
outside
side
the
by side.
body. So the question becomes,
Maybe those
was the
non-physical realms
Pentagon,
aren't empty.
was the
Exactly.
DIA
Maybe other
inadvertently
intelligences,
stumbling
other
onto,
types of
or
consciousness
maybe
already exist there,
rediscovering
and
some
maybe
kind
they
of
don't
ancient
appreciate
technique,
visitors.
something
The
mystics and
implication
secret
some
societies have been
was-
using for
was
centuries.
Project Sun
That's the
Street
implication,
prying
yeah.
open
Was
doors
this
that had been
military
deliberately
intelligence
shut
program
for
actually an
very good
unwitting
reason.
or maybe
From
witting
shadowy
occult
entities
experiment?
and psychic guard dogs.
Pretty mind-bending
The
thought.
claims then
and it
didn't
didn't
stop there,
escalate
did it?
dramatically. The experiences
We start
got
hearing
darker.
about potential
They did.
alien
Some
contact.
viewers started
Yes,
reporting
this is where it gets
encounters
really
with actively
sensational.
hostile
There are
presences.
declassified
Hostile?
documents, fragments.
How?
They
Hints
describe
mostly
that
that suggest
entering
some
a
remote
location
viewing
mentally
sessions were
projecting
specifically
their
tasked
consciousness
against
there only
targets
to be
off-world.
confronted, not by
Like
human
Mars.
guards,
Mars.
but by what they described
Seriously.
as shadowy
There's one
entities,
particularly
things that
famous
seemed
or
fully
infamous
aware of their
session
psychic
transcript
intrusion and
that
actively
describes
tried
a
to
viewer
block them or
experiencing
push them
Mars
out.
Aware of
millions
them.
of years
Yeah.
ago.
Like psychic
They reported
guards.
seeing
Essentially,
these incredibly
yes,
tall,
which raises
thin
a
beings
really
sheltering
profound
inside
and
giant
frankly
pyramidal structures
unsettling
while their
possibility.
planet was
Which is?
dying around
Well,
them.
if the human
A dying
mind can actually
civilization
travel
on Mars
outside the
viewed
body,
psychically
maybe
by the US
maybe
military.
those
It's
non-physical
hard to wrap your
realms
head
aren't
around.
empty.
And
Maybe other
apparently wasn't the
intelligences
only
already
instance.
live there.
And maybe they
Other
don't
sessions were
appreciate
allegedly
visitors.
directed at UFO
Exactly.
crash sites
Entities
on
that
Earth.
really
Roswell
didn't
is
want
often
people
mentioned.
like
Of course,
Sunstreak
Roswell.
viewers poking
Viewers
around. It
reportedly
makes you
describe
wonder,
seeing non-human
was
bodies,
Sunstreak opening
biological
doors that had been
specimens, and
deliberately
strange
shut
artifacts
for a
hidden
very
away
long
deep
time
inside
for a
secure
good reason?
government
Okay,
facilities.
so if they were opening
If true,
doors,
this completely changes the
what
game for
exactly did they
Sunstreak
find
was
on the
about.
other side?
There's also that
Because
really
some of the most
chilling
sensational
account, I think I read
claims
about
are
this,
about
of a viewer
aliens
describing
extraterrestrials.
getting inside a secure
Absolutely.
chamber.
This is where the story really
Somewhere
goes
like
into high gear.
Wright-Patterson Air Force
We actually
Base.
That's
have
the one, deep
declassified
underground,
documents,
supposedly.
fragments,
They
hints really
describe
that
seeing
suggest
metallic
some
containers
remote viewing
holding,
sessions
quote,
were specifically
biological specimens
Mars.
unlike
Mars.
anything native
Like
to Earth.
the planet
Wasn't there another
Mars.
The
claim
planet
about some kind
Mars.
of psychic
There's
network?
one particularly
another
famous
viewer
session
reported
often
witnessing
cited, where a viewer
maybe
gave this
tapping into
incredibly
a
detailed
vast
description.
psychic
They claimed
network.
they were
Something
observing
connecting
Mars
human minds
millions of
somehow
years
to
ago.
intelligence sources.
Millions. And they described
Well,
seeing these
beyond our
tall
world,
beings
way
sheltering
beyond.
inside
So if you take
massive
these accounts
pyramidal
at face
structures.
value,
Pyramids on
even
Mars.
for a
Pyramids on
moment,
Mars, as their planet
Sunstreak
was
wasn't just
dying
about
around
spying
them,
on the
a
Soviets
civilization
anymore.
facing
Not at all. The
extinction.
implication
Wow,
becomes
okay.
enormous.
That's
Was it
quite a
actually
claim.
about
It is, and it wasn't just Mars.
humanity for
Other
some kind
sessions
of
allegedly targeted
extraterrestrial
well-known
contact,
UFO
or maybe the darker
hotspots
flip
and
side.
crash sites on Earth.
Was it about
including
actively
Roswell?
concealing
Roswell had
that
to be in there.
contact,
managing the
and viewers
information
reportedly
Which
described
then
seeing
brings us to an
non-human
even
bodies,
wider, maybe even
alien
stranger
artifacts,
theory,
all hidden away
that it
deep
wasn't just
inside
about
classified
aliens from other
government
planets.
facilities.
ETs
So not just
in the
seeing
classic
things
sense.
far away,
Right. Some
but
researchers
seeing
and
things the
theorists
government was
propose
actively
Sunstreak
hiding.
stumbled
That's
into
the
contact
claim.
with
It suggests the
interdimensional
viewers
beings.
weren't just passive
Entities
observers.
not from other
they were
stars, but from
potentially
other
uncovering
realities, other
evidence of an
dimensions,
alien
perhaps
presence that was
coexisting
being
with
actively
ours.
So
concealed.
viewers
And
weren't
then
just
there's
seeing
Wright Patterson Air
Mars or
Force
secret
Base, right?
bases. They were
Always comes up
slipping
in these stories.
into
Yes.
different
Wright
realities
Patterson.
entirely.
Another
That's the
chilling
claim.
account
They
involved a
described
viewer who
finding
claimed
themselves
they
in
psychically entered
landscapes
a hidden
alien
chamber
and surreal,
deep
places that
underground
just
there.
didn't
What do they see?
conform to our
Containers.
physical laws,
holding
populated by
biological
forms of
specimens
consciousness
that were
defied
completely
any
unlike
human
anything known on
categorization.
Earth.
What kind
Alien
of
bodies,
descriptions
basically.
did they
That's
give for
the
these
strong implication.
interdimensional
And another
encounters?
viewer,
They're
often
possibly
very abstract,
targeting
very
the same
bizarre,
location
one
or a similar
report
one,
mentions a
claimed
massive
they
geometric
witnessed some
structure
kind
that
of
seemed to exist
psychic
in
network,
between worlds,
something
like some kind of
connecting
hub
human
or
minds
gateway.
to
Others described entities
something
that
else,
appeared
something beyond our
insectoid
world,
or out
almost
among the stars.
machine-like, or
A
sometimes
psychic
entirely
network connecting
formless,
us to
like
aliens.
pure
That was
consciousness.
the report.
And they
So you
communicated
look at all
not
these
with
accounts
language,
together,
but
Mars,
directly
Roswell,
through
Wright Patterson's
waves of
psychic
emotion,
networks.
pure
It paints a
thought.
very
That
different
sounds
picture than just
terrifying,
spying on
frankly,
the
to the
Soviets.
single aware of humans.
Completely
Oh, yes.
different. If you
The
take these
viewers
reports
often
at
got the
face
sense
value,
these
even just
beings were
partially,
incredibly
the
ancient.
implication is huge.
That they'd been observing
Project
Earth,
Sunstreak
maybe
might
humanity
have started
for
as
millennia.
espionage, but
Their
it seems
attitude
to have
varied.
pivoted.
Some
It
seemed
became
indifferent,
about
almost like
preparing for
scientists
contact
observing
with
ants.
non-human intelligence.
Others felt,
or maybe more
hostile,
cynically, about
predatory,
making sure that contact
Predatory
remained a
interdimensional
secret,
beings. Okay.
kept
So
far
the
away
theory
from
is
the public
Sunstreak
eye.
wasn't just psychic
But the
spying,
theories
it
don't
was
even stop at
mapping
just
this whole
ETs
other
from other
layer of
planets, do
reality.
they?
Essentially,
Some people
yes.
take it even
Mapping
further.
the
That's right.
interdimensional landscape.
There's a whole other
Trying to
branch of
figure out
theory
who
suggesting
or what else
Sunstreak
shares
wasn't
our
just
reality
encountering
unseen.
extraterrestrials,
And
but
according to this
potentially
theory, the findings were so
interdimensional beings.
profoundly
Interdimensional,
disturbing,
like
so
from
reality-shattering,
parallel universes
that they
or
had to
different
be
planes
buried
of
deeper than
existence.
anything
Exactly,
else,
something
completely
beyond
locked
just
down.
aliens
Which
in the
maybe
traditional
explains what
sci-fi
happened
sense.
next.
Viewers
Officially,
reported
Project Sunstreak
experiences
was
where they
shut
felt
down in
they'd
the early
slipped out of our
1990s.
reality
Correct.
altogether.
The official
Slipped
story
out.
was the usual
Into
government
landscapes
line.
they described
Inconsistent
as
results,
utterly alien,
difficulties with
surreal,
reliability,
populated
budget
by
cuts.
forms of
Basically, it
consciousness
didn't
that
work
just
well
didn't
enough,
fit
so we
into
stopped.
any
So not
human
everyone
categories,
buys
not
that,
just
right?
beings from
Skeptics
other
have a
stars,
very
but maybe
different
from
take.
other
Absolutely.
dimensions.
Can you
Many
give an example?
skeptics,
What kind of
including
things do
some
they
former
describe?
insiders,
The reports
argue
are
that
really
the official
strange.
termination
One
was just a
describes seeing this
smokescreen.
massive,
cover-up.
complex, geometric
They
structure
believe the
that
project
seemed
never
to
really
exist,
ended, it
quote,
just went
in
deeper
between
black.
worlds,
Meaning,
like a hub or a
Meaning it
gateway
vanished into
connecting
the
different
maze of
realities.
compartmentalized
hub.
black
Okay.
budget
Others
programs.
described the
programs with
entities
no public
themselves,
oversight, no congressional
sometimes
scrutiny,
insectoid,
completely
sometimes
hidden
almost
from view,
machine-like, sometimes
which
completely
leads to the big
formless,
question,
just
why?
presences, and they communicated
Why
not with
hide it so
language,
thoroughly?
but maybe
And the
through
answer,
direct
according to these
telepathy, or
sources,
what
is
viewers
pretty
felt
mind-blowing.
as
it is.
waves
The
of
core
emotion.
argument is that the
Not
discoveries made
talking,
under
just
Sunstreak didn't just
feeling.
push
Or
boundaries.
pure thought
They
transfer.
completely shattered the accepted
And
understanding
these
of
beings,
reality.
they
If
often
human
felt
minds really
incredibly
can
ancient, like they've
access
been around for
information
millennia,
across
watching
vast
Earth, watching
distances of
humanity.
space and time,
Some seemed
if they
indifferent,
can
others
contact
felt
non-human intelligences,
even
whether alien or
predatory.
interdimensional,
Right.
if they can
Interdimensional
glimpse
beings.
ancient,
Yeah, that's pretty
hidden
terrifying.
knowledge.
It puts a whole new spin on the
The
idea of
implications are
contact,
just
doesn't it? It's not
world-changing.
just meeting
Exactly.
neighbors
And
from
that
another
kind of
star
power, that
system.
kind of
It's
knowledge,
potentially
theory
bumping
goes,
into
is far too
intelligences
dangerous, too
from
destabilizing
entirely
to be
different
let loose
layers
in
of
the public
reality
domain.
that might
It
operate
had to
by
be
completely
controlled,
different roles.
contained,
So the
kept
conspiracy
secret
theory
by a
here
very
is
small group.
that Sunstreak
And
found
some
this.
former viewers even
Essentially,
claim
yes.
these psychic programs are
That
still
the
running
project
today.
moved beyond
That's
just
the claim.
psychic spying,
But
or
maybe
even
not
simple
just for
alien flying anymore. Some suggest
became
the
an
focus
attempt to
shifted
actually
to
map
communication,
this interdimensional
ongoing
landscape.
attempts to interact,
To figure out what
these
other
entities
kinds of
that might,
intelligence
as one source
share our
dramatically
reality,
put it,
shape
or
our
exist just
destiny.
outside our
Yeah.
perception.
And
the
the
reason it
occult
all
angle
got
comes
shut
back
down are
here,
buried.
too, doesn't the
According
idea
to
that
the
this wasn't
theory,
really new science,
was because the
but
findings were
rediscovering
just too
something
disturbing,
old.
too destabilizing. Some theories discovering that we share our existence
essentially
with
a modern,
potentially
militarized
powerful,
version
ancient,
of
and sometimes
ancient occult
hostile
practices.
interdimensional
Knowledge
entities.
perhaps preserved through
That's not
centuries
something
by
you just
secret
release in a
societies.
press
You hear
conference.
names
It
like
gets
the
locked down,
Freemasons,
deep.
the Knights
Okay,
Templar
so let's
thrown
talk about
around.
the end.
remote viewing just
Officially,
being a
Project Sunstreak
sterile,
was terminated in the
scientific-sounding
early
term for
1990s.
what they
That's
call
the official
astral
story,
projection
yes.
or
Yeah,
scrying.
the reason
And then
given
you
was
get the
pretty
really
bland,
fringe,
right?
really
Like
chilling theories.
inconsistent
The ones that
results
suggest
and budget
Sunstreak
cuts.
didn't just find
Pretty much
evidence of
standard
aliens, but
bureaucratic
evidence of
language for pulling the
alien
plug on something.
control. Happens all the time
Control.
with government
How so?
projects.
But given
Viewers
everything we've
reported
just talked about, a lot of people don't
experiences,
buy that, do
impressions
they?
really.
No.
That humanity
From a
was being
critical
watched,
perspective,
maybe even
many
guided or
skeptics, or
manipulated
maybe
by
believers in the
non-human
more exotic
intelligences.
aspects,
Argue
one
that the official
account mentions
termination was
sensing an
just
overseer,
a
some
smokescreen,
vast consciousness
a
that
cover-up.
viewed
To
do
humanity
what?
almost like,
Hide the failures.
well, like livestock.
Or hide the successes.
Another
hide the
described
successes,
glimpsing
or
a
at least the
council of
nature of the
beings,
findings.
seemingly debating
The belief
humanity's
is that the
fate
project
or readiness
didn't really
for open
end.
contact.
It just went
That's
deeper
heavy stuff.
underground.
Overseers
into
and
black budget
councils.
programs.
Almost makes you wonder
Even more
about
secret,
today.
doesn't it?
Exactly.
It does.
Broken up,
Some
maybe
theorists
renamed,
connect this
absorbed
legacy
into other
directly to the
classified
present.
initiatives where
They
it could
suggest
continue
these
without
advanced
any
psychic
public
techniques
oversight,
might
without
still be
awkward
in use,
questions,
maybe by
which leads to
powerful
the
elite
big
groups
question:
to gain
why?
hidden knowledge or
Why
influence
the
events.
alleged cover-up?
And could the
And
recent
the
surge
answer,
in
according
UFO
to these
disclosures
theories, is pretty
the
fundamental,
government
isn't it?
suddenly
It's
talking about
reality
UAPs?
shattering, potentially.
Could that
If
somehow
human
be
minds
related?
can
It's a
genuinely
question some
do
are
these
asking.
things,
Did
access
the remote
information
viewers
across
see too
space
much?
and time,
Is the truth
make
finally
contact
starting
with
to leak out,
non-human
forcing the issue
intelligences,
into the open after
glimpse
decades of
ancient
denial?
secrets or
Whatever
future
the absolute
events,
truth behind
the
Project
implications are
Sunstreak
just
is,
enormous.
one thing seems
World-changing.
undeniable.
Too
What's
much
that?
power for
human
the
mind.
public to handle.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
too much
this
power for
vast,
anyone but a
largely
select few
unexplored
to handle.
frontier.
That's the argument.
Mysterious,
That kind of
powerful,
capability,
maybe
that
even a
kind of
little
knowledge
dangerous.
couldn't be allowed out,
Capable of
had to be
perceiving
controlled,
realities far
contained,
beyond
kept
what our
secret
everyday senses
by
tell us.
those who
And
understood its
Sunstreak,
potential
for all its secrecy
or
and
its
strangeness,
danger.
And some
might have
former
just been
viewers,
scratching
people
the
who are
surface.
actually in
A
these
first
programs,
glimpse. You know, the
they claim
project
it's
was
still
named
going on, right?
Sunstreak,
There
like
are
a
claims
flash
like
of light in
that,
the
yes.
sky.
Former
But the more you
remote
learn about
viewers
it,
who
the more it
insist
feels
the
like
government still
like a
runs
crack.
psychic
A crack,
programs.
yeah, like a fracture on the
But
wall
maybe
between our
not
normal,
just for spying
everyday
anymore.
world and
What for them?
For
something else,
communication.
something much
Specifically,
stranger lurking just
communication
beyond
with
our
some of
perception.
these entities.
It leaves us with so many
beings
questions,
that,
doesn't it? According to these
deep,
claims, might be
unsettling
influencing
questions.
or even
Was Sunstreak
shaping
ultimately
human destiny
espionage?
in ways we
Was
can't
it
even
science,
begin to
or was
grasp.
it, without fully
Shaping our
realizing it, some
destiny.
kind of
Okay, now
modern
we're into some
occult
really
ritual?
deep
Did they really
conspiracy
uncover
territory.
Soviet
We are.
secrets?
The theories
Or did
branch
they
out
accidentally
even
tune
further
into
from here.
alien
Some suggest
civilizations? Maybe
Sunstreak
even
didn't
tap into
just
these
find aliens;
interdimensional
it found
realms.
evidence
Did this
of alien
project
control.
expand
Control.
human knowledge in
Like,
profound ways?
we're
Or did it
being
risk
managed.
unleashing
Like reports of
forces,
a
maybe
cosmic
consciousnesses that we
overseer
simply
or a
cannot
non-human
understand, let alone
council
control?
debating
The official
humanity's
answers,
fate,
if
or
they
even viewing us
exist in a
almost like
clear form,
livestock,
are still locked
really
away,
disturbing stuff.
classified. And then there's the other
Hidden in
angle.
government vaults.
That
maybe
Sunstreak
only
wasn't just
whispered about
military
in the
tech,
deepest
but was
corners of the
essentially a
intelligence world.
modern
Right.
government-funded
But maybe the real
occult
legacy of
experiment,
Sunstreak isn't about
tapping
finding
into the
definitive
same
answers.
kind of
Maybe
ancient
it's about the
knowledge that
questions
groups like
themselves.
Freemasons or the
Exactly.
Knights Templar
The
supposedly
profound,
possessed,
maybe
and
unanswerable
esoteric
questions it
science
forces us to
rediscovered.
ask. So,
Military
military
true
intelligence
potential
meets
of our own
secret
mind.
societies,
Meets
about the
ancient
fundamental
magic.
nature
That's
of
one of the more
reality
elaborate
itself.
theories, yes.
Yeah.
And the
about
idea is
who
that these
or what
techniques might
else
still
might
be in
be out
use
there.
today, maybe
The
by
hidden
elite
architects,
groups.
perhaps,
And
of our
some
world.
even connect the dots to
It's
the
a lot to
recent
think about.
surge
It really
in
is.
official
And maybe,
UFO interest, the
just
UAP
maybe,
reports.
even right now as you're
The
listening
theory
to this,
goes that maybe the
someone,
remote
somewhere
viewers just
is
saw
still
too
watching.
much.
Not
Maybe
with
the
satellites,
truth
not
started
with
leaking
cameras,
out in ways that
but with their
couldn't be
mind,
controlled by
reaching
conventional
out
secrecy
across
anymore,
space, across
forcing the
time,
government's hand
maybe
to
even
start
across
acknowledging
dimensions,
something is out
searching,
Wow.
watching.
It all comes back to
Waiting.
the mind, doesn't it?
Because
It
a project
really
like
does.
Sunstreak, whatever the
Maybe
truth
the
of
sun never
Project
truly sets
Sunstreak,
on something like
it
that.
highlights that the